Welcome to this class. My name is Devin Ashby. I work for Family Search International in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm excited to be here at Education Week and to do this virtually. So wherever you are, welcome. And this class is called Making Memories of You, a new family history experience. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And again, welcome. So I want to start with this quote from President Nelson, which he just gave a few months ago in April. It says, "While worshiping in the temple is presently not possible, I invite you to increase your participation in family history." And he went on to mention research and indexing specifically. But I think this is a great quote for right now. Many of us can't attend the temple like we have been able to in the past. And so this is a different scenario for many of us. Temple work has changed. Missionary work is different in many ways as well. And the Lord is teaching us new models of how to work in the last days, and specifically as it pertains to family history on how to gather Israel on both sides of the veil, like President Nelson, often says. So while worshiping in the temple is not possible, increase your participation in family history. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that and give you some ideas and some suggestions on what to do. And specifically, we'll talk about how to make memories of you. Later on in the presentation, we'll do a demo where I'll show you how that can be done very simply on your phone. So that's the goal today, increase our participation and specifically making memories of you. So we live in a crazy world. There's a lot of people, 7 billion of us, right? And we move around a lot. We have our phones with us. We're on the go, we're walking, we're driving, we're cycling, we're commuting from our beds to an office to work in our homes, right? So there's a lot of, busyness right now. With this pandemic, COVID, we've been grounded in some ways back into our homes, which can be a very, very good thing. But keep in mind that there are a lot of people, and people need experiences to engage in family history or connection in very, very simple ways. There are estimates that 100 billion people have lived on the earth from the beginning of time until now. That's a lot of people, 93 billion more than what's on the earth right now. So how do we invite people to increase their participation in family history when people look like this and when many of us feel like this, on the go constantly? Well, in the past, family history, and very much today as well, family history can be viewed through a research lens, right? There's lots of research that can be done. There's documents. I work specifically at Family Search in helping patrons in Latin America engage with their family history. A lot of people that we interview, we talk to in Latin America, feel like they need to go to an archive or they need money to go to an ancestral homeland, right? Somebody in Brazil might feel like they need to go to Italy to do some research on their family line. So there's this research focus or this travel focus or getting to an archive, or I'm not retired yet, so I don't have time to do it, or that takes too long, or that I heard FamilySearch.org is online, so it's technical. I don't do tech. Well, we know about a lot of those feelings, and honestly, those reasons, those barriers to engagement, in some ways, maybe even excuses, those excuses are actually shared globally. We hear this in many areas of the world. So one of the things we're trying to do at Family Search is, in addition to some of these things, and in addition to this research focus, we're trying to create experiences that are made for people like you saw earlier that are on the go, that are in the streets, that are walking, that are commuting, that have some time before a game or waiting in a doctor's office or whatever the scenario might be. So this is an experience that's relatively new. It's familysearch.org/surname. In Spanish, it's familysearch.org/apellido, and in Portuguese, it's /sobrenome. And I just want to show you really quickly how this experience can be a little bit different than perhaps what we've typically thought of as far as family history goes. So here is a very quick web demo. I'm on familysearch.org/surname. It redirects to the URL that's in the upper left-hand corner. In this experience, there's not a whole lot of places to type except the huge box that's in the middle. So this says, enter your last name to find its meaning and origin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter in my surname, which is Ashby. And now I get a very brief definition of my surname. And down here, I can engage in some interesting experiences. The United States is a country, I'm familiar with that one. England, definitely. Barbados. Why would Barbados appear on this surname experience for my family? Well, that's because in the family tree at Family Search, there's 527 Ashbys from Barbados. This is really, really interesting to me. And I've actually gone to Barbados and looked for the surname ancestry, the surname Ashby, excuse me, and have found some very interesting scenarios and very interesting family ties there. There's a story about Ashby's getting to Barbados, and that's one thing I want to go discover and learn. As I scroll down here, I can share my infographic. If I want to click the download infographic button, I get this simple little shareable with these countries. I can share it in WhatsApp. I can share it on Facebook. I can share it wherever I'd like. I can email it. I can text it. Whatever. Here are some share buttons as well. If I wanted to search for a specific person, I could do that as well. And down here at the bottom, it says something else that's kind of interesting. People have this Ashby surname in the family tree, 48,000 of them. So it's kind of a cool, very simple experience. You notice I didn't sign in. You notice this doesn't matter how many people I have in my 4 generations. If I want to do another surname, which is Ravston, which is from my dad's line, I can look here, and there are much fewer Ravstons in the tree, coming from Sweden, coming from England, coming from the US as well. So a very, very simple experience is 80 people have that surname Ravston in the tree. Another great thing about this experience is it's mobile optimized, so you can share it on your phone very, very quickly and very, very easily. So again, that's familysearch.org/surname. And we're hopeful that experiences like this will give people hope and will give them a different perspective around engaging in family history, even if it's only for a couple of minutes. But this is something that's easy to share and easy to discover. Remember, it's available currently in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. We're working on other languages as well. Why do I share this? It's because the work of gathering Heavenly Father's family is not just for young people, and it's not just for grandparents. It's for everyone, because we're all gatherers. I love the word gatherers because it means that everyone is a gatherer. And what I just showed you can be done on any device, anywhere, in a couple of minutes. So in addition to the records, in addition to a lot of these things that Family Search and other companies, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and others have been doing, we have now this very, very simple experience for quick engagement. I'm going to change gears a little bit. Now I want to talk about a family story of mine which builds into the story of me, right? Because we're talking about memories of you. So these are my grandparents. They've both passed away, and they're wonderful people, Marvin and Yvonne Ashby, who lived in northern Utah for a number of years. My grandma, her line is the Ravston line from over in Scandinavia. So I want to share just a very quick story from World War II about my grandpa. This is when he was 18, so quite a few years younger. I have put this memory in Family Search, and with this photo that I've added, I've attached a recording of his voice talking about this experience. I'll show you a little bit more in depth later in the class on how you can add memories in the Family Search app, which is very, very simple. But for purposes of right now, I'm just going to explain quickly what happened in this story. So years ago in World War II, my grandpa Marvin went with the troops from the US that helped at the end of the war. He was a camera operator and repair guy as well. So he didn't see a lot of fighting action in World War II, for which we're grateful. But when he was 18, he had this experience happen to him. And when he told this story, he was much older, like in the prior photo that you saw. And before he passed away, he did something that was very interesting. We often would ask him, Marvin, when are you going to write your life history? When are you going to talk about what happened in your life? And he would always say, Devin, I can't write my life history because I have the shakes. And he literally did. I remember having a priesthood blessing from him once, and my head shook pretty violently. But he did. He couldn't hold a pencil really well in his later years. So he would, instead of trying to write it down, he did something that was pretty ingenious. What he did is he took a bunch of photos from his life, and then he actually talked about those photos on cassette tapes. I don't know that my kids even know what cassette tapes are, but those of you that do, know that that was something we used pre-CDs and pre-Spotify and Pandora and digital music. And he talked about these photos. And he took a photo, he talked about it on an audio cassette, and years ago I actually sat down and transcribed his audio recordings and made some text, which I've uploaded to Family Search. In this story, when he was 18, he was overseas. I believe he was in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, he was part of the 6th Ranger Battalion. And there were a couple of guys that had very different standards than he had. He was the only LDS boy in that group. And he said oftentimes they would tease him and call him Bish because he was an LDS boy. Well, when he was 18, he had a man come to him one day who was 35, so much older than he was. And he said, Marvin, we just got paid, and I'm going to go down to the PX, and I'm going to probably get drunk. But I need to save half of this money for my wife because we have a child back at home in the States who's very sick. So I'm going to give you this money, and I need you to hang on to it, and I'll probably come ask for it later today, but you can't give it to me. And my grandpa said, okay. So off he went. And sure enough, he went and he got drunk and he did a lot of other things. And later that day, he showed up and he demanded that Marvin give him the rest of his money. And my grandpa, remember, who's 18 years old, said no and wouldn't do it. He said he threw chairs. He said he was very, in some ways, pretty violent around him. But he wouldn't give him his money. So the next day, after he slept off the night before, he went and he found my grandpa, and they went and they mailed that money home to his family. And at the end of this story, he says something really important. He says, I think this is a great lesson about living the principles of the gospel because this man trusted me more than he trusted himself. Now, this story is part of the memory of me. It's part of my story. And I love it because of what it teaches about the gospel, but what it can also do to teach my kids. There will be times when they're the only one in the crowd. There will be times when they need to make a tough decision. There will be times when my kids' friends will trust them more than they perhaps even trust themselves. And it's important to build on these stories of faith in the generations. And we can gather this information like President Eyring is saying. So I hope that story is a helpful way to see why it's important to gather stories and why it's important to make the memories of you. Like I said, this is available now in his voice with his photo for free on Family Search for all of those that are connected to Marvin, and it's a wonderful treasure. What treasures do you have like this that other people need to hear? I invite you to think about that and give it some prayer, and the Lord will tell you who and what stories are available, and you can gather those and make them available. So why don't people make a history? I mentioned my grandpa's reason because he had the shakes. A lot of things I hear when I ask people this question are, well, nobody wants to hear my story, or it takes too much time, or nothing interesting has happened in my life. Nobody cares. It's something I don't want to do. Well, all of those sound a lot like the excuses, I mentioned earlier of not engaging in family history. And a lot of those excuses just keep us out of the gathering. And frankly, makes Satan pretty happy because we're not engaging in blessing and building faith in our generations. You can have someone else write your obituary when you pass or write your story, or you could do it. And you could be the voice that is then passed down, and you can share the story of faith. Make it you, because nobody can do you like you can. Besides, there's science that says that this stuff works. Years ago, Bruce Feiler in 2013, he wrote this article in the New York Times called The Stories That Bind Us. After this article, he came to Roots Tech up in Salt Lake a couple years after he wrote this and talked about the different family narratives that he's studied. A lot of this is with information from Emory University. He talks about the oscillating narrative, kind of the good and the bad, the ascending narrative, and the descending narrative. The oscillating narrative, he says, is the best one because the families that are the happiest and the kids that are the strongest come from families that tell stories and build resilience into the generations. One of the things he says is the single most important thing that you can do for your family may be the simplest of all. Develop a strong family narrative. So these mission statements, sometimes we see in homes. We have one as a family. I've seen one that is very, very brief. In another family, we saw a family that part of their mission statement was to travel, and they had pins in the places they had been on the world and places they wanted to go. What is your mission statement? Build it into your family story, into the memory of you. The oscillating good and bad, a lot of times we just tell the good stuff that happened and we're scared to be vulnerable, right? We don't want to talk about the hard stuff. It's important to talk about the tough stuff as well. If everything's rosy and fine, that's not resilience, and that's not what our kids need. The scriptures are not just the rosy stuff. There were a lot of stories in scripture of people being vulnerable and people showing weakness. And like we know in Ether, the Lord can make weaknesses into strengths. But we got to tell both sides, not just the good. Sydney Walker with the Church News has done some excellent articles about this topic as well. This is one that you can Google, you can find in the Church News, but it's dealing with feelings of anxiety and depression, how family history can help. She did one as well on people who have had instances of abuse and instances of suicide in their family, and how family history and this notion of healing that Elder Renlund's talked about in conference can help. The healing blessings of family history. The second article in the series, there's 3 of them. The second article talks about pornography, and there's a specific example of how indexing helped a brother with his addiction to pornography. And so here's some Church News articles, the Bruce Feiler article, there's information from Martha Dreisnick, there's lots and lots that's coming out saying that this information really helps in family narratives, and these oscillating narratives can build strength. Just remember that you do you best. That's something that's important to remember. So don't let somebody else do it. You do it. Another quote from the prophet. Anytime you do anything that helps anyone on either side of the veil take a step toward making covenants with God and receiving their essential baptismal and temple ordinances, you are helping to gather Israel. Anytime, anything, anyone's pretty broad. You can gather a photo, you can gather a story, you can share a story, you can interview someone. All of that is making memories of you, and you can do that. So let's specifically talk about making a record of you. There's lots of ways that you can do this. You can get a bunch of documents. You can get your shoebox that's in the attic. You can take photos of stuff. You can request information from people. A couple things maybe to think of are start with what's already been done at familysearch.org. Sign in, look for what's been done about your family, maybe your parents and your grandparents, so you don't have to go redo some stuff that people have already done. Another thing you can do is reach out to family members. We had a very interesting case recently. My wife and I were helping a friend do family history, and they said they had a certain surname that was Ukrainian in Ottawa. Well, we started searching online, and we found a Ukrainian community in Ottawa on Facebook. I listened to a lady earlier this year at Rootstock that said she literally found her family on Facebook as she started making connections with people online. Found her surname overseas in Spain. It was all digitally available, connecting communities in Facebook. So that's another thing that you can do. Remember as well that Family Search doesn't have all the records in the world, so you might benefit from Google searching as well and doing some searches through Google for some surnames and some homelands and things like that. You might be shocked what you can find through some simple Google searching. When you think about making a memory or making a record of you, I want you to think of doing it on your phone. Why? Because your phone is with you usually, right? An archive is not always with you. A family history center is not always with you. A consultant might not always be with you, but your phone is. So use your phone to make memories of you. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you want to take a picture of this screen or just write this URL down at the bottom, familysearch.org/blog/en/52 stories. There are lots and lots of questions here to get started in making memories of you. Sometimes the best way to get started is with a really good question. How has your life been enriched by your commitment to causes? What were your favorite hobbies in your childhood? What qualities in friends do you most admire? There are dozens and dozens of questions here. 52 stories means a question per week of the year. There's different sections, there's different categories. Go to this site and maybe start answering a couple of questions and finding photos that support those as well. I'm going to jump out and share this as well. This is called the Connections Experiment, the 21-day family connections. I'm going to just hop out and show this really quickly. This is a website that was made not too long ago by a couple of people that wanted to figure out how to make family history available in a simpler way. So if you come into these connections, the 21-day family connections experiment, under About, you can learn a couple of different things about the people who kind of got this going. Under Plans, you can actually download free plans. All of this is free, by the way. You don't have to have an account. But you can come in and you can do a plan about you. You can build your own. The family plan, I'm going to click on really quickly. In the family plan, you can choose different days. There's stuff about names. What happened the year you were born? Guess who said that? Family pictures. Recreate photos. This is kind of a fun one. You take a photo from a decade ago of a couple of siblings, and then you go get those siblings together, see if you can find similar clothing, and recreate that family photo. Kind of fun. So there's some plans that you can download here as well. And then this evidence tab, just really quickly, has a lot of interesting articles, the stuff from Bruce Feiler and Martha that I mentioned earlier, that's all here. Sydney's articles as well are down here with links also. So you can come in here and look at some of this evidence that's building that suggests that telling family stories can build strength throughout generations. So that's the Connections Experiment. Check back here, the content will be updated, but that's another thing that you can use as you're thinking of making memories of you. So tell your story. Let's start with a simple story. Let me show you a picture of what people generally look like when we invite them to tell their stories or to maybe even do some basic journaling. They look like this, right? I don't want to do that. It's too hard. Nobody will care. My life isn't exciting. I've messed up. Yeah, so have all of us. So don't think of it like this. Right? Think of it as a photo. Think of it like my grandpa did. You don't have to record cassette tapes. Just like get a photo and then like talk about it on your phone. I'll show you how to do that in a couple of minutes. But this is not complicated. One of the biggest things I want you to remember is this commandment, and it's called, "Thou shalt not be overwhelmed." If you are, then you probably won't engage. Just simplify this down. Making memories of you, it's not complicated. And hopefully, the goal that I have with this presentation is that you feel something and you hear something, and whatever that prompting is that you receive from the Spirit, please just go do that one thing. It doesn't even have to be something that's here. Just get a feel for what you need to do next. And I promise you, like we mentioned with our friends earlier with the example in Ukraine, These family members want to be found, and sometimes the best way to find them is through your story. So start with you. One day we'll have a reunion in heaven and we'll meet these family members, and we can learn about them then, or we can learn about them now and build that into our story and build it into the resilience that the next generation so desperately needs. So don't be overwhelmed. All right, Family Search has apps. I invite you to download the Family Tree app. Now, you might be thinking this: I have that app on my phone, but I haven't opened it in a while. I opened it yesterday, and there was a new update that I needed to update. This app from Family Search gets updated all the time. So please don't think because you opened it once at a family history activity a year ago that you know what's in there, because there's a whole bunch of stuff there. There might even be too many features in this app. But if you learn some basic things about how to use it and how to navigate it, you can really do some amazing things. All right, so I'm going to do a demo soon that shows you how to do this. But download the app. Don't create a new account. It's your LDS account that you use for Gospel Library. It's the same thing. Sign in, and let's make some memories. Just to give you some hope, what I'm describing can be done by kids. These are some journal stories that my daughters have done. Our oldest, who's 16, you should see her journal on Family Search. On Sundays, what we do is we journal about photos in Family Search. And I don't even have to ask my 16-year-old, or really, sometimes my 13-year-old, but I don't have to ask my oldest because she just always gets it, and she writes these big old novels. I don't want to discourage her writing, but I know that that journal is more likely to be lost than what she puts on Family Search. So think of Family Search as a place to journal. Take a photo, write about it, talk about it. There's a lot of different things that you can do. So snowshoeing from 2017. Eleanor, Dad, and I went snowshoeing up Guardsman Pass. I know that I look like I have a hat on my head, but that is all ice. I stood under trees and shook them to get snow on my head to keep cool, and melted into ice crystals. Eleanor said I look like Jadis from Narnia. That's one. Here's another one our daughter Krissa did a couple years ago. I was in a play, and it was The Little Mermaid. This is a picture of us in one of our performances doing Under the Sea. It was a priceless moment to be in that play. I loved that so much. I was a jellyfish, and I was in Under the Sea, Ariel's transformation, Kiss the Girl. Here's our other daughter, Briley, who a couple years ago, she was a lot younger. This is us in Peter Pan. It is our I'd Tonight. I don't know what that means. Me and my sister have mics on. So if my kids can journal on Family Search, anyone that hears this video can do it as well. And you probably won't make as many mistakes. But I used to go back and correct this, and I don't anymore because I think it's awesome and it's real, and they're learning to type. And so it's fine. Here's one thing to make this easier. If you don't want to write, if you don't want to type on a keyboard, then just talk. There's a huge green button in Family Search that we tried to make really, really big. And if you click that and you talk, the phone will record you, and then it'll sync it to the tree so that audio piece is connected to that memory or that story. All right? So now we've reached the point in the presentation where we're going to do a demo. Now, I am going to show you what this looks like on an iPhone. So those of you that have Androids, that have Pixels, Windows phones, whatever you have, I'm going to show the experience on an iPhone. And I'm going to specifically talk about those 4 green circles in the bottom right-hand corner that are add document, write a story, record audio, add a photo. That's what I'm going to be discussing. There's a whole series of classes that we could do on all the functionality that the Family Tree app has from Family Search. but we just don't have that kind of time today. One more slide I do want to mention before I go in and show that is, this is the difference between an Android and a iPhone in most cases. My iPhone is the one on the right. It's got the fan chart view. It's in dark mode. You don't have to have dark mode, but that's what it is. The navigation on the iPhone in the app is at the bottom in the menu with those icons: tree, tasks, temple, recents, more. For an Android, it's actually in the hamburger menu in the upper left corner, usually, of your phone, okay? So iPhone navigation on the bottom, Android navigation, upper left. All right, now let's see if we can get this demo to work. Okay, here it is. And I'm going to go into the Family Tree app. All right, this is not my actual account. I created a different one as a demo for today. So today I'm going to be Bill. So this is Bill, and there's not a lot in this tree, which is okay. I have Pioneer generations on both sides, so my tree is very full. But for purposes of right now, we're just gonna pretend that I'm Bill. So I'm on the Tree tab in the bottom left. If I were in my account, there would be a lot of tasks I could do, right? There would be people I've been to recently. There would probably even be a temple tab here, right? But the point I want to make today, being Bill, is I'm just going to click on me. Again, I am talking about me. So Bill Benson, this is a fake account again, but under details, you'll see information here. There's a spouses, parents, sources tab. I just want to go to the memories tab, all right? So now that I'm on memories, where do you think you'd get the green circles? You click on the green circle with the plus sign. That's what you do. So down here, as I click on that, I see what I showed you just a second ago. Add document, write story, record audio, add a photo. I am going to add a photo. So I'm gonna click that. It gives me the upload guidelines and submission agreement, which I can read, which is really helpful. People that are living in the tree are viewed by you. People that are deceased can be viewed by others, but people that are living are private on the tree. So I'm gonna agree to this, and then it's gonna pull up my camera roll. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through here and I'm gonna click this photo right here. Notice at the top of this screen, I can also upload a photo from Facebook or from Instagram. But I'm gonna click this photo on my camera roll, and in the upper right, I'm gonna click upload. So now this photo I'm going to upload, I'm going to click save. So now Bill has a memory. I wanna come in here and I wanna add a title, On Top of Utah. And I'm gonna hit save. Why are we on top of Utah? Because this is my 3 daughters and I, my niece, and my father. We're on top of Kings Peak, so we're on top of Utah. It's the highest point in Utah, which is over 13,000 feet. We just did this last week. So now, you can see this photo. It's attached to my account. It's great. Notice on the bottom, there is a microphone icon with a little green circle next to it. If I click that, it's going to come up with this prompt to record. What button do you think I push to record my story? It's gonna be the huge one that says start. So let me show you how easy this is. Last week, our oldest 3 daughters and I climbed Kings Peak with Grandpa, Uncle Jason, and a couple other family members. It was a great experience, and in July, we were snowed on. That's because the Uintas has its own weather pattern, and no meteorologist, no weatherman can predict it. It was a great experience. Now I'm gonna let Amber tell you her version of the story. And then I could hand that to my daughter. And she would have a much more dramatic, exciting piece to tell on that story than I would. So now I'm gonna click done. And now the audio is added. At the top, it says it's syncing. That means it's going to sync it with the tree. And now this photo on my account has a little play button and I can listen to that whenever I want. What I just modeled doing of handing the phone to my daughter, I do it all the time. If you don't record their kids when they're young, they're gonna grow up, fact. So record your kids when they're small. Just the last Sunday, we listened to this experience of my daughter talking about my brother who was on his mission in North Carolina. It was super cute, it was super funny. He had months to go on his mission, and we asked our young daughter, we said, how much longer does Uncle Kier have on his mission? She said, 6 minutes. But it's the cutest voice ever. So this is not very difficult. That's how you do a photo. If I wanted to record an audio by itself, I have these fun prompts that I can use. What memories do you have of your oldest relatives? If I clicked that, I would hit the button and talk about that question. Or I can just hit the button at the bottom right that says begin recording, and I can talk about whatever I want. You don't have to pin an audio recording to a photo. You can do it a lot of different ways. If you have a CD, if you have a tape, if you have a video, and you want to pull the audio out of that, just get a photo of someone, maybe your mom, add that photo, and then find that video, hit the record button on your phone, hit play on the device, and suck the audio in on your phone. It's super simple, right? So we talked about adding a photo, we've talked about recording audio. If I want to write a story, I can say, let's see, what could I say? Building an oven. And then I just hit that button that has, where it asks me to add photos. And right here, I can click this photo and hit upload again and hit save. And now I've just pinned that photo to this story. If I don't want to type it all out on my phone, I can do this. This week, we continued work on our pizza oven outside, period. It was a great experience in triple-digit weather, period. Soon, we'll be able to cook outside, exclamation point. I click save, it's done. Not hard, right? Start with you, make memories of you. The last one is add a document. This can be whatever you like. It can be something from Family Search. It can be something off your camera roll, whatever you'd like it to be. Very, very simple. It could be a headstone. It could be an obituary. It could be a photo from a book that you have sitting on your shelf. One of the great things to do, to gather, is to go into Family Search and look at who doesn't have photos and look at who doesn't have documents and who doesn't have sources. You can do most of that work just with the camera that's on your phone, with the mic that's in your phone, with the photos that are on your phone. You can do this in very, very simple ways. Remember the differences between Apple and Android. Your navigation will be different if you have an Android. What I showed you again was on my iPhone. Another thing I want to talk just really briefly about, you can take a picture of this URL as well. Family Search has developed something called in-home activities. They're perfect for COVID times. You can go here and you can engage in all kinds of different activities that are very, very simple. Let me see if I can show you what that looks like. If you go to familysearch.org, under activities, the last one is called in-home activities. If I click that, then I'll see the page I just showed you. There's there's activities about me. There's activities about my family. There's activities about, if I signed in, there would be a couple of other ones as well. I'm currently not signed in. But very simple, very, very basic. Many of them do not require technology. You can just do them at home. For example, if you wanted to do something about the year you were born, there's some very basic questions here that you can engage in. Talk about something that happened. Here's an online activity that you can go use and engage in as well. So that's called in-home activities. You can just Don't even have to sign in. You can just come right here and engage in these activities. Okay, now we're coming to the close, and I'm going to give you homework because this is Education Week and you should get homework. So here it is. Take a picture of this. You can hit pause, whatever you want to do. This is what I invite you to do. Again, let me reiterate. The most important thing is to follow what you feel you should do next. If you want a very simple homework assignment, this is what I invite you to do. I invite you to go on your app, Family Search, the Family Tree app in the App Store, sign in to your app and add 5 photos just like I showed you with Bill's account. You can add them with captions, add them from your phone. Super simple, not difficult. Then I want you to write 3 memories that are important. Talk about 9/11. Talk about something you've learned during COVID times. We, last Sunday, had a little book club with some of the great couples that live in our cul-de-sac. I learned some great things from that conversation, and the perspectives that some of them have about what church will look like when we go back were very valuable, and something that I hadn't considered at that level in the past. So write 3 memories that are important. Share a spiritual experience. The one I shared about my grandpa, it's excellent. My kids know that story. What's your story like that? When have you felt heaven? When did you help someone who may have trusted you more than they trusted themselves? And then finally, choose 3 in-home activities. I just showed you the page to do that. Engage in a couple of activities. They don't require technology. Very simple. Okay, as we wrap this up, just want to read this quote from our prophet, from President Nelson. Nothing opens the heavens quite like the combination of increased purity, exact obedience, earnest seeking, daily feasting on the words of Christ in the Book of Mormon, and regular time committed to temple and family history work. Regular time. It doesn't mean hours every week, but I think the word regular matters. We're all busy. We're all on the go. Things are busy. COVID has slowed us down for lots of good reasons, but we're still, many of us, very busy. Make some time to be regular in family history, and perhaps flip what you've thought about family history on its head. Start with you. You don't have to always complicate it with a lot of things that you may not know how to do or may not have the confidence to do. So start with you. Do some photos, download the app. It's very simple. So be regular. Sundays are a great time that work for me, work for our family. Find a time to be regular. Why? Because temples are going to open again, right? In April conference, we heard lots of faith, lots of optimism about temples opening again. I believe that they will. It's going to happen. So what better way, with temples currently closed to many of us, to get ready for that reopening than to increase our participation in family history, like President Nelson said. I know that if we do, we'll be blessed. We'll hear voices from the other side. They want to be found. They want us to engage. They'll help us. I've never talked to someone who prayed for help finding their family that didn't get some kind of an answer to that. The challenge is a lot of us don't ask, so we don't start. I invite you to focus on the temple, to focus on the gathering on both sides of the veil, to focus on increasing our participation, to find out how to be somewhat regular, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. I know that the reunion with our family on the other side of the veil will come. I know that it's real. I testify that we can be better prepared now in mortality if we study some of these things and learn some of these stories, so the reunion will be sweeter on the other side of the veil. I know that we have a prophet that's leading and guiding us today, and the gathering in the last days is something that's unique to each of us that are alive right now, because we finally have the temples and technology to really advance this work. Hopefully this session of Making Memories of You has been helpful. And again, go do now what you've felt you need to do next. And I share that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.